This is VOA Africa. Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory in for Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Monday, March the 9th. This is Africa 54. This is VOA Africa. Well, the Sudanese Prime Minister is safe after surviving assassination attempt that targeted his motorcade in Khartoum on Monday. That's according to state television. Abdalla Hamdok was traveling to his office when his convoy was targeted with an explosion. According to state media reports, there has been no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack. Hamdok became prime minister last August following the removal of President Omar al-Bashir, who was ousted in April 2019 after months of nationwide protests against his rule. Now, the Sudanese government says it will turn over Bashir to the International Criminal Court for trial. He is wanted by the ICC on charges of war crimes, crimes against humanity and genocide. Prosecutors say pro-Bashir forces tried to destroy entire ethnic groups in Sudan's Darfur region as they fought to suppress a rebellion that began in 2003. Now, the unyielding spread of the coronavirus continues to hit countries across Africa. Nigeria's health minister via Twitter on Monday is confirming a second case of COVID-19. Osagie Ehanire says the new case is in Ogun state. The male patient is one of 40 people being monitored and he is clinically stable, according to the minister. Egypt is confirming its first death from the coronavirus. The nation's health ministry announced Sunday that a 60-year-old German tourist has succumbed to the disease. The man was taken to a hospital with a fever but refused to be moved to a designated isolation hospital, as according to the ministry. Meanwhile, Togo and Cameroon confirmed their first cases of COVID-19 on Friday. Cases have also been detected in Senegal and South Africa. Now, the number of COVID-19 infections continues to soar in Italy, while it appears to be slowing down in China, where it originated. Italian authorities have quarantined some 16,000 people in the northern provinces in an effort to contain the spread of the virus that causes respiratory problems. VOA's Zlatitsa Hoke has this update.
The virus, identified late last year in the Chinese city of Wuhan in central Hubei province, has spread around the world and has now reached the U.S. capital, Washington, and the surrounding area. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has declared a state of emergency. On Sunday, he announced measures to protect residents, including testing as many people as possible, but he ruled out large-scale quarantines.
What we have seen in China, what we're seeing in Italy, you'd have to do massive quarantine, which would be very disruptive to society and the economy.
The Italian government on Sunday imposed travel restrictions on some 16 million people in the north, including major cities there, such as Milan and Padua, as part of a fight against the deadly virus. People can travel in and out of these areas only with a special permission, as the number of deaths reached 366 on Sunday. Many fled before the ban was enforced, but others welcomed the measure.
We have seen that people positive for the coronavirus have broken the quarantine to go skiing in Trentino. Seriously? How selfish. So at this point, these measures are necessary.
The COVID-19 strain of the virus has quickly crossed international borders. First cases have been reported in Bulgaria and Afghanistan. Officials in Afghanistan's Herat province say the 4 people who have tested positive for the coronavirus have all been in Iran, where the number of cases has reached 6,000. But as VOA's Dari service learns, Herat's border with Iran remains open.
If we close official borders, illegal crossing could happen, so the risk will be greater. At official borders, we have health teams that test travelers.
Local authorities have ordered spraying public areas across the province and are distributing health kits that include masks and soap. The latest reports from China are good and bad. A hotel used as quarantine in the coastal city of Gwangju collapsed Saturday, killing 10 people and trapping more than 70 in the rubble. Officials reported on Sunday that the number of new cases has dropped.
There have been 44 new confirmed cases and 27 new deaths, all in Hubei province. There have been 84 new suspected cases, and 1,661 patients were discharged from hospital.
Among those discharged from a makeshift hospital in Wuhan is a 101-year-old man. The central Chinese city is the epicenter of the outbreak that has infected more than 100,000 people worldwide and killed more than 3,000. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Stock markets plummeted worldwide on Monday, plunging the dual concerns over oil prices and the economic effects of the coronavirus that has spread to more than 100 countries. Key exchanges in New York dropped more than 7% as trading opened for the week, following a 5% dive in some Asian markets and a 7% loss in midday trading in Europe. The steep decline at the New York Stock Exchange triggered a temporary automatic 15-minute halt in trading to limit losses to 7%. The price of oil fell 30% on the continuing fallout from a failure of top oil producers, including Saudi Arabia and Russia, to agree on cuts to supply amid a drop in demand. The combined pressures sent stocks in Japan down 5% Monday, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng closed down more than 4%, and Shanghai Composite Index finished down 3%. Now, markets in Britain, France, and Germany all saw big drops as they opened on Monday. Well, nearly 50% of Nigeria's population are women, and about 20% of them are living with a disability, according to a research by a Nigerian advocacy group. Activists say many of these women face stigma and suffer injustices because of their condition, including gender-based violence. But one disabled woman is pushing back to ensure women like her have better access to health care and equal justice. Timothy Obiezu reports from Abuja.
When Ibirindu Onyinyechi was barely a year old, she was struck with an illness that paralyzed both her legs. Still, she got an education, earned a linguistic degree, and now works for the Abuja government. But Ibirindu says Nigerian disabled women are subject to sexual violence.
Many times when some of us are in a relationship, these guys tend to take advantage of us. You know, I think sex is supposed to be something I consent to. You don't force me to do it. You don't try to use the strength of a man to try to take it. But unfortunately, that's what many of us suffer.
Women and girls with disabilities in Nigeria are 3 times more prone and vulnerable to gender-based violence than their able-bodied counterparts, according to a non-profit activist group. They also find it harder to seek justice because of stigma and bias due to their condition.
Most times they are not believed.
Irene Patrick of the Disability Rights Advocacy Center, or DRAC, is helping women and girls with disabilities get better access to justice.
Nobody believes that, oh, as a person, as a woman with a disability, you were raped, because of the societal notion that women with disabilities are not sexually attractive. So nobody can actually desire them enough to rape them. So we found that this is preventing them from getting access to justice, because not only do they not want to report anymore, even when they report, nothing is done about it, and in some cases they are actually ridiculed.
Nigeria signed its Disability Rights Act into law about a year ago, but activists say ignorance, lack of access, and poverty remain barriers to justice for Nigeria's disabled women. Emmanuel Adedeji of the Nigerian Bar Association pledged his group's support at a recent meeting.
I think this meeting will be an eye-opener to every one of us to know the provisions of the laws prohibiting discrimination against persons with disability, which was recently passed into law after several years of ratification by Nigeria. The Nigerian Bar Association will be willing afterwards from today to be part of any initiative to protect the rights of persons with disability.
Until matters improve for women with disabilities, organizations like DRAG say they will provide a safe place for them to fight for equal justice. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja.
An Ethiopian Airlines flight marks the 6th consecutive year the carrier has made this symbolically important flight. VOA Amharic journalists Abtamu Seyum and Eden Gedemu attended the welcoming ceremony at Washington Dulles International Airport, and VOA Salim Solomon has the details.
To celebrate International Women's Day, an all-female flight crew from Ethiopian Airlines flew from Addis Ababa to Washington, D.C. The flight marked the 6th consecutive year the airline has made the symbolically important flight with a female crew.
Ethiopian Airlines aims to show the African girls that there are no professions reserved for men only, and inspire them to have no limits to their dreams of becoming anything that they set their hearts to. In short, as we say back home at Ethiopian, on this day, we fly to inspire.
The largest airline in Africa has made hiring women a priority and said 40% of its employees are female, including 32% of management positions. The airline has female pilots, aircraft technicians, engineers, flight dispatchers, load controllers, and ramp operators. Rahel said too often on the African continent, girls are taught that their only worth is to be married and live a domestic life.
When their brothers are sent off to schools, girls are mostly held back at home to help out, as well as be groomed on how to be a good wife, a good mother, a good homemaker. Much work is needed to educate parents and communities in general that their daughters can be anything and everything their sons can.
Captain Amsale Gwalu, who piloted the transatlantic flight, became the first female captain in Ethiopian history in 2010. She said it is important for women to support one another in fields whether they are underrepresented.
The main thing is networking. Women should have a connection among one another and exchange ideas. The other thing is supporting each other. For example, when we fly with an all-female crew, even when there are standard procedures, there are things that make you happy.
Amsale said at the time of the first all-female flight in 2015, there were only 8 female pilots at the airline. Today, she said there are 20, with another 24 training in aviation school.
The change has come. Women support each other, we have our own groups, and we show that it is possible. And by supporting each other, showing that it is achievable, is our responsibility.
Ethiopian ambassador to the U.S. Fitsum Arega said the country's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has made it a priority to promote women to positions of power. His cabinet is made up of 50% of women, and the country now has a female president and Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He added that empowering women is a boost to the nation's economy.
There's an African proverb that says, if you educate a man, you educate one person. If you educate a woman, you educate a nation.
Hostess and team leader on the flight, Bzoayo Yilma, said there was a special feeling on board. She hopes it inspires women worldwide.
Any woman can reach any position she aspires to reach. This is not charity, but the duty or the responsibility of all. Everyone should support us. This is a show of our strength and how we can stand on equal footing. So I think that we have given a big education to all.
With Eden Garamo and Habtamu Siyum, Salim Solomon, VOA News, Washington.
Well, we're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, a closer look at how politics impacts women athletes.
Chibwana chimalata, Chibwana chimalata, ukakhala pabwino oyipa pamayitana. Chibwana chimalata, ukakhala pantchito ulova umakodola. Chibwana chimalata, ukakhala pabanja umbeta umayitana.
Well, voters in 6 states will cast their ballots Tuesday for the Democratic Party's presidential nominee. Only 2 of the leading candidates are still in the race: Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders and former Vice President Joe Biden. VOA's Mike O'Sullivan reports that Sanders faces an uphill challenge after Biden won 10 contests last week.
Joe Biden rallied supporters in Missouri Saturday, coming off wins last week that let him reclaim the lead in the Democratic race. Missouri will hold a party preference contest Tuesday, along with Michigan, Idaho, Mississippi, North Dakota, and Washington State. Bernie Sanders campaigned in Illinois, where Democrats will go to the polls on March 17th in another key primary. Major rivals have quit the race, and many have endorsed Biden, including former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, and former New York Mayor and billionaire Mike Bloomberg. Sunday, another former candidate, California Senator Kamala Harris, gave her endorsement on Twitter.
I want you guys to know I have decided that I am, with great enthusiasm, going to endorse Joe Biden for President of the United States.
It's not surprising, Sanders told ABC This Week on Sunday.
What was very clear from the media narrative and what the establishment wanted was to make sure that people coalesced around Biden and tried to defeat me.
Biden says that Sanders, who calls himself a democratic socialist, is too extreme to build a winning coalition.
I promise you, we're going to bring together Americans of every race, ethnicity, gender, economic station, Democrats, Republicans, and Independents of every stripe.
Sanders says he has sparked enthusiasm among workers and young voters.
I think we're going to win this thing. We won in California, we won in Utah, we won in Colorado, we won in Vermont, we won 3 states popular votes before that. And I'm looking forward to the primary here in Michigan and in the state of Washington, other places as well.
Civil rights leader Jesse Jackson endorsed Sanders on Sunday, which could help Sanders broaden his appeal with African Americans, an important voting segment with whom Biden has picked up key endorsements. Mike O'Sullivan, VOA News, Los Angeles.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. Cart horses are a common sight in the streets of Cape Town, where they're used to move waste materials to dump sites. And thanks to legislation and the work of a nonprofit organization, the welfare of the animals has improved in recent years. The Cart Horse Protection Association provides subsidized feed, farrier, and veterinarian services. The beasts of burden were victims of apartheid segregation policies when people of color living in the city were moved far away from its food markets. The result was seeking new recycling opportunities and a deterioration of horse welfare. Next up, Danish artist Sam Jeddak is determined to take art outside the confines of the gallery and out in the real world. For his latest project, he's been traveling through Europe with a metal cube, positioning it in stunning landscapes, hurling it down mountainsides, or simply carrying it through the streets of the Spanish city of Almeria. Jeddak describes his work as sitting between performance art and land art, with the cube representing both the picture frame and the white cube of the gallery space. And that's what's trending today.
Well, in week 2, U.S. football action, D.C. United won 2-1 against Inter Miami FC at Audi Field in Washington, D.C. The wild match saw Inter Miami's skilled playmaker Rodolfo Pizarro score Miami's first goal in club history just 2 minutes after kickoff, before United struck for both its goals in the immediate aftermath of a second-half red card to Roman Torres. EDC was then awarded a penalty kick just after Torres was sent off when Victor Ulloa was whistled for a foul on Edison Flores in the penalty box, allowing Yamil Assad to convert the equalizer from the spot in the 59th minute. Frederick Brillant then struck for the goal-ahead tally just 2 minutes later, smashing home the rebound of a free kick from Flores, completing the shocking turn of events and giving the hosts a lead they would not relinquish. It really was a remarkable turn of events for Inter Miami, who went from thinking they had doubled their lead to playing with 10 men and falling behind by a goal in the space of a chaotic 10-minute span. In the end, it's a second straight loss to start their Major League Soccer existence, but they have looked competitive in both games and appear primed to remain as such throughout their debut season. DC United is breathing a sigh of relief at not dropping home points for a second straight match to start their 2020 campaign.
It wasn't perfect, but it's 3 points, and 3 points in this league, it's hard to come by. I thought Pizarro is a great addition to this league. He's a handful, and I think they're going to do quite well, that team.
Well, Inter Miami's Pizarro and Mexican international Pizarro say they will continue pushing forward to find the first MLS victory. Well, now, female athletes around the world, but particularly in conservative countries, are facing discrimination, harassment, and criticism for their desire to pursue a career in sport. This year's International Women's Day theme is Each for Equal, Forging a Gender Equal World. That involves sportswomen as well, who compete on the field and bring honor to their countries, yet sometimes aren't appreciated as much as men are in sports. We get more in this report by Sahar Majid, narrated by Emma Morris.
Shamila Kohestani, former captain of the Afghan women's national football team, had family support in her quest to pursue her athletic ambitions, though she still had to face the challenges associated with playing sports in a conservative society.
Women athletes in Afghanistan faces many challenges. It's extremely difficult for women to play sport in a country where women are still considered a second-class citizen. When I began playing soccer, we had no women's soccer team. And, even when I visited the Football Federation in Afghanistan, there were no women working there, and we had no teams.
The situation for women athletes in neighboring South Asian countries is no different.
Every time you were playing out on the field, I remember this goalkeeper of mine would get really worried because there would be people standing behind her on the goal and then, whisper or shout out rude remarks to her, which were sexual in nature and we were suggestive in nature, and they were just there to harass her simply.
Despite all hurdles, there's a silver lining because in recent years, women have become increasingly prominent in sports.
Here in Jordan, we have all the support from the Football Federation and the government. We actually hosted the Under-17 Women's World Cup in 2017. We also hosted the Women's Asian Cup Finals in 2018. I have achieved so many things right here in Jordan. For example, I am the first woman to take the professional diploma license for football coaching.
However, experts worry that politics can worsen the situation of female athletes in some conflict-ridden countries.
The Middle East is witnessing, multiple scenes of conflict right now, and this is where women become the most vulnerable population. So I think the worst countries off right now are, Yemen, Syria, to a lesser extent Libya.
I think one of the concerns about an Afghan peace process is that it could lead to a situation where the Taliban is able to wield some degree of power. And the implications for women and certainly female athletes are strong.
The gender pay gap is another issue that women athletes in patriarchal societies have to face. But that's not the case in countries where governments support sports.
China, especially Japan and Korea, the governments are putting, lots of funding into improving the infrastructure for sports development for male and female athletes. The developing countries such as Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, Cambodia, the governments are not putting the funding in.
Challenges are unlimited, but giving up is not an option for these resilient athletes. For Sahara Majid, Emma Morris, VOA News, Washington.
Well, that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a good evening.
People, now you ready to
From around the world, let's go.